at some of the major ideas from the reading assignment that I gave you, A Raisin in the Sun. Um, we've been taking a look at uh, the civil rights movement and how we tend to, as human beings, take a look at race as a way to separate us versus them, seeing this dualistic, overly simplistic mindset of how to separate each other into categories to develop a sense of superiority over others. A Raisin the Sun examines the lives of an African American family and how they struggle amid challenging socioeconomic circumstances. This is the final component to our ongoing discussion of the civil rights movement. We have been examining the Jim Crow laws and how these enforce racial inequality by disenfranchising African Americans to keep them from voting, and were created to enforce segregation. The main idea was that African Americans were deemed inferior and should be kept separate from whites. Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement questioned the injustice of these laws and pushed for reform. Inspired by Gandhi's movements in Africa and India to free Native people from the rule of Great Britain, Martin Luther King's plan was to create a nonviolent direct action campaign. This was to create agitation and conflict to bring awareness to the injustices of these laws. I had you watch Four Little Girls, which provided a personal, in-depth framework to contextualize the civil rights movement. The main focus was that the civil rights movement was led by people, not simply historical figures, which we sometimes forget. These individuals had families and made sacrifices that led to important changes throughout the 20th century. Where the civil rights movement focuses primarily on the South, A Raisin in the Sun takes place in Chicago and explores the racism that exists in the North. Where the South did not care how close African Americans lived in proximity to them, they did care how economically prosperous they became. The North inverts this by not caring how economically prosperous African Americans attained, but they did care how close in proximity African Americans lived to them. The racism in the North also is centered on segregation. There were some communities that were to be white only. Lorraine Hansberry, the writer of A Raisin in the Sun, explores the racism and hypocrisies that existed in the North. Sometimes we often think that racism only happened in the very rural parts of the South. However, racism is systemic, and that's the main idea that I want you to be thinking about as we conclude the civil rights unit. One question that I want you to consider in your reflection of A Raised in the Sun is which aspect of the younger family's difficulties arise from being African American and which aspects arise due to their poverty? What is the relationship between these two dynamics? So I'd like you to pause the video for just a second and think about what challenges the younger family faced. And then I want you to determine whether these challenges were specific to their poverty or specific to the social conditions of racism that they faced. So pause the video for a moment and then come back and I'll share my thoughts. You may have noticed that it was a difficult exercise. One problem that you may have found was that it was due to their poverty, but you may have also, upon further reflection, noticed that there was also racial overtones to their impoverished conditions. While other problems may have been due to their racism, this was also intricately linked to their poverty. Hansberry explores how difficult it is to separate these two items. Poverty and race go hand in hand. Limiting people's opportunities because of race leads to poverty, and limiting people's opportunities due to poverty leads to racism. As we learn in Alma chapter 32, The Zoramites denied the poor entrance into the synagogues and hated them because of their poverty. In verses 2 to 3, it states, quote, "They were cast out of the synagogues because of the coarseness of their apparel. Therefore, they were not permitted to enter into their synagogues to worship God, being esteemed as filthiness. Therefore, they were poor. Yea, they were esteemed by their brethren as dross. Therefore, they were poor as to the things of the world, and also they were poor in heart." Close quote. Hatred leads to finding more reasons to hate. Injustice leads to greater inequality. It's a vicious cycle. It is only when we start to remove the injustices that we have greater equality. It is only when we remove vitriolic rhetoric that we can have healing. Hansberry explores these ideas. At the very root of the main ideas of A Raisin in the Sun are the injustices that exist and how we can try to remove these and heal and move forward as a nation. Another question that I want you to consider in your studies of A Raisin in the Sun is the idea of dreams. Dreams overshadow much of the play. I would like you to identify the dreams of each of the characters. Each one of them have a different dream in mind. So I want you to think about what dreams each of them have. Walter, Mama, Benitha, and Ruth. In what ways are hopes and dreams a positive force within the play? And lead them and push them, encourage them to become better. And then I want you to also think about in what ways are they a negative force for the family. So again, pause the video, make a list of Mama, Walter, Benitha, and Ruth's dreams, and consider whether these are positive or negative forces within their lives. Taking a look at each of these dreams separately, I wanted to first start with Mama's dream. Mama's dream is perhaps the simplest of them all. She wants a nice house where her family can live. Much like Norman Rockwell's Four Freedoms that we explored earlier this semester, she wants to be freed from fear. She wants freedom from want. She wants freedom of worship. And she wants freedom of speech. Her American dream is having full access to the social system that the country promises to her and her family. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. She is not hoping for more money like Benitha and Walter. She's not looking for better education or employment. She just wants a place free from oppression, free from segregation, and free from hate. One can look at her dreams and suggest that it shows that she is very practical, wanting only the simplest of things. Another could argue that her willingness to accept a dream that should be a basic human right is a sad commentary on her mindset. She does not even look for more in life. She simply wants basic human rights for her and her family. And this is all she's willing to settle on. Walter has a slightly different dream than his mother. Walter wants to invest his father's inheritance in a liquor store. His wife, Ruth, is not sold on this idea, and it provides tension between them. She believes that this is a pipe dream and will only waste their opportunity to improve their lives through this newfound money. She wants a better home with more room to raise her family. She wants to incrementally improve the family situation. Walter, on the other hand, wants to swing for the fences, so to speak. He wants a home run opportunity to achieve the American dream. He believes that his business will provide the family financial security for years to come. However, as we all note as we read through the play, this is risky. Putting all their eggs in the basket of his business, which can fail, would mean that they would be back in the same situation, struggling from paycheck to paycheck, if his venture fails. However, to Walter, owning his own business and being his own employer is his dream. Benitha's dream is to have an education. She wants to be a doctor. Where Walter sees his opportunity for social mobility is in a business, Beneatha sees social mobility in education. Others in the family see her ventures as frivolous. They would prefer her to study something that has more immediate impact on their financial circumstances. They see her studying poetry, music, and art as impractical. For them, it is better for her to focus on her efforts on something more concrete, like a trade. Art and music do not have an immediate way of providing financial income. Her mindset is that culture, their mindset is that culture is a waste of time. People should only be concerned on earning a living. This reminds me of a quote by noted cultural theorist Bell Hooks, who said, in reference to students that she taught in Harlem versus students that she taught at Yale, quote, in a certain kind of patronizing way, education just says all these people of Harlem need is tools for survival, basic survival tools, like their degree so they can get a job, and not, in fact, that we have enhanced their lives in the same way we've enhanced our lives by engaging in a certain kind of critical process. Close quote. Students at Yale are taught to be critical thinkers. They're taught to have an advantage and use their advantage to better themselves. That education is not simply about getting a job. It's about improvement, improvement for one's whole self rather than just one's financial opportunities. However, the students in Harlem are considered lesser and thereby denied the same critical advantages. They're denied certain advantages within their education, the educational process. So educators focus on giving students in Harlem only the less survival tools, the bare minimum. The concern is for them to only have enough skills to get a job. This is in many ways what Benita's family wants for her. Becoming a doctor seems too lofty for them. It is too much of a pipe dream. It would be much better if she focused on something more attainable, like becoming a teacher or a waitress or a sales clerk. This, in many ways, is what Benita's family wants for her. Perhaps they understand the social conditions that would make it so challenging for her to achieve. However, they could have been influenced by the propaganda that they see themselves as less, so they're willing to accept less for themselves. Benitha, on the other hand, resists this mindset and works to obtaining something that she sees that she should be able to obtain equally to anyone else. Perhaps the most elusive dream in the play is Ruth's. She never overtly states what her dream actually is. Perhaps this is the most poignant part of the entire play, the failure to even realize that a dream is possible. Perhaps Ruth is best at seeing the world for what it is, though. Maybe she fully understands not only the obstacles that her family faces due to poverty, but she also understands the additional obstacles that they face due to racism. This is a double blow to the dreams of African Americans, fighting an uphill battle with two strikes against them. While Walter and Benitha make plans to better their lives, Ruth struggles where she is. Walter accuses Ruth of being small minded. Maybe she is small minded because she doesn't even have a dream or even look to have a dream. However, maybe she fully understands the racial injustices that make it nearly impossible for social mobility. So perhaps it is Walter and Benitha that are small minded because they naively ignore the harsh realities of their social conditions. If there was a dream that Ruth does indicate in the play, it is that she tells Mama to go on a trip to Europe or South America with her husband's inheritance. It could be that she realizes that lasting change will never happen given the injustices that exist. For her, it is far better to leave them behind temporarily and make most out of what you can. Ruth describes life as, quote, a barrel of disappointments. Hence, it is better to get used to one's problems than it is to waste time dreaming about things that will never come to be. It is too painful for her to fill her head with false hopes. She sees the dreams that others have as wasted ventures that are simply empty conjurings of the mind. This perhaps is the saddest commentary of the play, and where Hansberry's own perspective is revealed. Another question that I want you to consider is the idea of illusion versus reality. Much of the play deals with the tensions between illusions and reality as the characters search for their American dream. I want you to think about which character is best at seeing the world for what it truly is. Pause the video for a moment and think about which character would you think has the best ability to see the world as it truly is. This is a question that each of you need to answer on your own. It is going to depend on how you interpret the play. Some may suggest that Walter's dream enables him to see the world as it is. He knows that people only respect money. We live in a materialistic world where a person's net worth defines one's individual worth. He understands that for someone to be respected, that person has to prove his merit financially. Thus, his dream is centered on economic mobility. Others could argue that Beneatha sees the world for what it is. She knows that if people are going to rise above their current circumstances, they have to have an education. Education is the primary way to better one's life and one's future. Thus, she sees education as a way to learn about the world and become more refined and sophisticated. She believes that this will open doors of opportunity for her. Others may suggest that Mama and Ruth, however, are perhaps better at acknowledging their social restrictions. Where Walter dreams of financial security and this dream blows up in his face, excuse me, Mama and Ruth know better than this. They recognize their place. They know that there are forces that limit their opportunities because of their poverty and race. Where Walter and Beneatha seem to live in denial, Mama and Ruth, excuse me, have a better grasp of reality. Their problem, however, is that they never venture to look for more in life. They accept where they are, and therefore they will have a hard time improving their overall quality of their family's life. So the real question is whether it is better to dream or not, given the socioeconomic circumstances of the play. Should someone even dare to aspire to become better? If you do try to become better, you could fail, as we see with Walter. If you don't try to become better, you will be free from failure, but you will also be free from success. So as you think about these ideas, I want you to consider what you think Hansberry's argument is about having dreams, whether these are an illusion or whether these are actually attainable. One more question I want you to think about in terms of the play is how it fits into this larger discussion that we've been having since the Harlem Renaissance. Building upon the ideas of the last question that we just covered about dreams and illusion, Hansberry gets the title of the play from Langston Hughes's poem entitled Harlem, where Hughes questions what happens to a dream deferred. With that title in mind, I want you to think about who is the main character of the play. Pause the video for a moment and think about who is the main character of the play. These main pauses that I'm developing within the lecture here is where we would be talking about this if we were meeting face to face. The question that I would like you to contemplate here is to make an argument for which character you think is the main character. The last question I want you to think about is the ending of the play. Consider what happens at the end of the play. Is the ending happy, sad, indifferent, etc.? Are the lives of the younger family going to be better, worse, or about the same? What do you think the lesson of the play is? Again, pause the video for a moment, think about these questions, and then come back and I'll provide my commentary. Again, the answer to these questions will depend upon your interpretation of the play. While there are many instances that you can point to where the family failed at the play, there are also several moments of success. They do get the new home. They do move from their circumstances. However, they move to a place where they are unwanted. While the white community tried to buy them out of their home that Mama purchased, the writer of the play, Lorraine Hansberry, once said that if you think the play ends happily, then you have never lived in a place where you were unwanted. This reminds me of the Norman Rockwell painting that explores these ideas, where you have children of different races coming together for the first time. You have the awkward first encounter. Rockwell's image demonstrates the problems that pertain to racial tensions. However, he also hints that progress may happen in the future. While adults are too stubborn and set in their ways, perhaps change can happen in the next generation. However, to contextualize this in terms of Hansberry's play, the title of the play comes from Langston Hughes's poem, Harlan. Hansberry perhaps suggests that there's going to be impatience when you continually ask for the dream to be deferred. So as we continually say, well, maybe the next generation, things will be better. Hansberry is questioning how long can we kick that proverbial can down the road? Can we please examine change today? In terms of whether or not the play is happy at the end, they do attain some level of progress. They live in a better place. However, their socioeconomic struggles will continue. They will have to continue to fight for equality at school, in the workplace, and at home. The problems of race are systemic. They lie under the very fabric of our society. Quick fixes and easy solutions will not solve the depth and complexity of these racial inequalities. Hansberry's play lends itself easily to a simple interpretation that it is a happy ending. While the family has changed somewhat, society hasn't, though. Some may suggest that this is a depressing interpretation of the play. This, however, may be a bit simplistic as well, and it may be a bit dismissive. The family seems to have grown closer over the course of the events of the play. They're able to achieve at least one dream, moving into a new place. There are struggles ahead of the family. The real question is whether or not each of the characters are in a better place to face them. If you believe that they have grown and learned something during these events, you will believe that they are in a better place and therefore the play does end on a happy note. If you believe that they have not grown, then you will assume that they will continue to face the same challenges over and over. This will make the play seem to have ended on a sad note. Like most things in life, it depends on what you choose to focus on. This concludes our unit on the civil rights. We have been examining the dynamics of racial inequality and how it is part of the natural man to invert ways to feel superior over others. We devise propaganda to justify superiority and build ourselves up while knocking others down. This happened in Nazi Germany, and this happens in the United States. Because this is part of the natural man, it happens virtually everywhere. It is not just with race. We can see this with gender, ethnicity, religion, nationality, political ideology, etc. We can even see it in things that are less serious, with things like sports teams, colleges, and neighborhoods. The hope is that we can rise above this part of the natural man. However, we need to see through the propaganda and understand how it works so that we can distance ourselves from it and see it more clearly. Next, we will be examining the propaganda in relation to gender and how we see disparity between men and women, and how we often use propaganda to build one gender up above the other.